I'd like to have a conversation about human capital management, and I want to go back in time, uh, maybe about 10 years back in time, and kind of build on the expectation curve, starting with, let's say, virtual reality. That was kind of an innovation trigger, and from there, a lot of internal talent was valued differently. We were starting to use some of those unique technology tools to build that marketplace, and we raised the expectations with learning experience platforms, learning management systems, uh, and then there was an arrival of virtual assistants. Really fascinating, and expectations were still growing. The virtual assistants continued with recruiting, and eventually, then there were a lot of HR, human resource applications that came out, consumer HR, and then along came platform as a service, where there was still a fair amount of IT ownership on the premise side, but various providers, cloud-like type providers came later, but I would say outsourced providers were more involved at that point. And the voice of the employee was listened to, but then we started to see some flight there. A lot of freelance management systems came about. And as we looked back office, we started to look also at mid office. And so there were a lot of workforce type apps growing from that. And with companies going global, our expectations were still rather high as we were looking at multi-country payroll. It's very, very hard to do that by hand. So there were various apps and multi-country payroll coming out of that. And so we were probably at our highest exciting expectation as far as continuous feedback of employee performance. And that was probably the peak of our inflated expectations. And so then we started to trail off. We were trying to move into machine learning. I'm talking now about 5 years into all this growth. And surprisingly enough, even though there were conversations about employee wellness, a lot of companies weren't that committed to it. Reward systems were then considered, and the expectations were continuing to drop. It's like employees weren't excited by what was happening. So some other techies came out and strategists came out, and there was some workforce planning and modeling going on. And we started to do a fair amount of video recruiting. I remember one of the jobs I had, everything was negotiated video. All right, so um, that led to a potential turnaround in how we were managing human capital, where we were looking at talent analytics. There was some frightening statistics of people who were getting jobs just to get training, and once they got the company funded training that they needed to move on, they moved on. So companies found themselves in the training business, whether they liked it or not. And so we were in a trough of disillusionment, and we had to turn that around. So new innovations came out from this trough. We started to do a little more onboarding. Companies were spending a bit more time to get employees aware of what was expected on this new job, as well as they really wanted to hear from the employees. What do they want to gain from that? And so I would say relationship management systems evolved out of that. Relationship management systems about all of that. Now we started to drill down a little into line management as well, but the talent management continued to grow. We haven't come back to the peak of 10 years ago, peak of expectations from employees that we had 10 years ago, but we're on the way. It's leveling out a little, and so where we are now is there are a lot of cloud human capital management systems out there. So the best way to really understand what's happening with cloud human capital management is to look at the larger firms. The ones with for instance, 1,000 employees, and you begin to see that there are kind of three big camps here. There's administrative human resources, where software is managing the org structures. It's dealing throughout the life cycle of the employee with various tools. There's a bit of role based self service going on, freeing up the upper HR to do other things. Um, and of course, included within this is benefit and payroll admin. Now, you can include other things like absence management, health and safety administration, and various other evaluated added capabilities. But it depends on what kind of budget you have. Now, I'm a consultant, so I look a lot on the talent management side, and there's various apps and software companies that are very active in onboarding and recruiting, performance management, career and succession planning are included in there, and of course, learning and skills development. I've spent 30 years as a professor, so I'm kind of focused on that side of things. And then, of course, they're integrated services. When you look at HR, like policies, direct access to policies. I'm working with an organization now where if an employee is interested in a particular policy, there's a link that you can click, and the details of that policy are there, or the exact words of the policy are there. So very exciting things going on. There are a lot of companies that are in this game. SAP is one that you may or may not be familiar with. Workday, Darwin Box, People Strong, or others. Oracle has a Fusion cloud service in human capital management. Zing HR is active in this space, and there are others. Cornerstone is one of the last ones I remember looking at last week. So very exciting things happening in uh, in the human capital space. So we can't lose sight of the fact that no matter how much we are into generative AI and artificial intelligence, but we still need human capital. There's a certain amount of processing in the way that humans make decisions that is still yet to be modeled. So we have to continue to see the value in our workforce. So that's what this conversation is about. I am Dr. Hamilton, the senior or the principal consultant of Hamilton's Solutions. Thank you for listening.